Welcome back to another episode of Foolproof Theology. We are live on X for this episode because it is somewhat of an emergency broadcast regarding what is going on in the state of Colorado. So if I record this live, I've never done this before. Actually, I used to do this all the time on the podcast. I'm going to try to do a basic summary of events for what's going on in the state, where we're at, where the fight is, and how we can rally more support. I typically will do ad reads at this time. We'll see if they make it onto the show later or something like that. But I'm just going to get right into the content because we have a lot to discuss. So, kind of a summary of events up till this point. What we've seen is that the Democrats are behaving in Colorado like a trapped dog. They've seen the kind of national politics go right, and so they are pushing everything they can in Colorado to get their radical agenda passed. And so what happened specifically on one bill, House Bill 2513-12, a bill designed to protect the rights of transgender individuals. I believe that's somewhere in the title of the bill. They put that before the House committee. They said they were going to bring it to the House March 28th, Friday, March 28th, late in the day, a late news drop on a Friday. And then they voted, or they held it in committee in the House in the state of Colorado on April 1st. This bill had people speaking for and against. There were 10 hours of testimony. Many people submitted testimony online. I publicized the testimony I wrote in. You can go find that on any social media I'm on. And many other pastors did the same thing. We had several pastors show up, several other Christians show up to speak against it. So let's summarize what this bill is. House Bill 2513-12 makes it a crime to misgender or dead name someone, makes it a discriminatory act. It takes children away from parents who dead name or misgender their children, and it pushes gender ideology in all schools, including charter, and it was private. I think they've removed that from the bill. So that's kind of the story of how we got here. There was a hearing in the House. Like I said, many Christians showed up and many people who you would not expect showed up. So we had what some call TERFs, radical feminists against transgender ideology. We had gay men speak up. We had people from the quote, I don't know this is a community, but they call themselves the autist community, the autism community. They were there speaking against this bill, and you could always tell who spoke for it because their voices had seemed to have already been on some kind of hormonal treatment. And so they voted on this 2 days later. They allowed limited debate to 2 hours in the House, and it passed along party lines, 7-4. All Democrats, 7 for it, Republicans for the number 4 against it. Every Democrat voted for this, while every Republican opposed it. Democrats have made themselves, this is what they are, the party of delusion, of transgender ideology, and child grooming. We've seen 2 cases in the state of Colorado, one in Durango and one around Denver, where a public school teacher has encouraged a child suffering from this mental illness and then taken them out of their home. The child declares themselves homeless. The teacher takes them from their parents and then threatens the parents and essentially kidnaps the child from the parents in order to prevent them from quote unquote what this bill would do, abusing them. This is what it does to Christian parents and all parents in the state of Colorado. This is what the Democrats are doing here. They have also passed a radical gun bill in Colorado that rivals the state of California in its criminality. And so what they're doing is they're running full court press. Polis just signed this into law yesterday. This bill would limit not just magazines, but it's like fixed magazines on any kind of AR style rifle. And so you cannot have a rifle in the state of Colorado with a detachable box magazine. I don't know what's going to happen to my, if someone were to own, not that I would, my grandfather's hunting rifle that has from the 60s that has a detachable magazine. I don't know how they would regulate that. I don't know how this will get passed. I'm hoping that the Second Amendment task force that Trump has kind of assembled will come against this quickly, that it will get killed in court, but we will see this law, this gun bill law. It could be a whole, this whole other transgender ideology stuff could be a distraction so that Polis could sign this one. We don't know. They play politics very well on this, but there's some other bills that are being pushed in the House and in the Senate. Senate Bill 183, includes taxpayer-funded abortions. House Bill 1309 codifies gender-affirming care in health plans. And of course, House Bill 1312 labels misgendering as child abuse and discrimination. Senate Bill 129 provides out-of-state telehealth abortion pills. So now, if you live in another state, you can get telehealth from a doctor in Colorado who can provide you with abortion pills. Here's the reality: this is what the Democrats are at this point. This is who they have been, and it is who they will continue to be. They are not letting up on this stuff. They are doubling down on everything that lost them the national election. And if you voted for these Democrat state reps and senators in Colorado, this is what you voted for. You may not like it. You may not like to hear me saying that, but this is what you voted for. I'm happy to own what I voted for. I'm happy to own what I voted for nationally. I'm happy to own who I voted for in the state of Colorado. What about you? If you're a Christian in the state of Colorado and you decided to fill in that bubble next to a D on your election ballot and you turn it in, this is what you voted for. And I implore you to turn away from this. This is insanity. It's absolutely anti-God, it's anti-Christian, and it's anti-human. And so we have been trying to explain this to you. If you've been a longtime listener to the podcast, I've been trying to explain these things to you. I've been trying to bring you guests that can explain how politics works, how we should think about politics from a Christian perspective. And yet you remain stubborn and you stop up your ears and you will not listen. You will not listen. This is what the Democrats have become. They have become the party of radical transgender ideology. This has been part of the plan for the Democrats and for the left in Colorado for a long time. 30 years ago, Colorado was not this way, and they made it a target state for them to flip blue. They invested millions of dollars into turning it blue because they wanted a middle America state besides Illinois that they could flip blue. They already have the coast, and so this is their plan. Now, what's been happening locally in response to all of this stuff? Well, we saw a lot of people show up. Like I said, we're seeing a groundswell of opposition against this bill. And like I said, not just from Christians. In fact, many times Christians are silent, which is very shameful behavior on their part. We're seeing actually atheists. We're seeing agnostics. We're seeing feminists. We're seeing gay men who are more clearly able to articulate the wickedness of this bill than some Christians. And it should shame us as Christians when we see the world doing the job we should be doing, calling evil, evil, and wickedness, wickedness. Some now are speaking up for the first time. I've seen a lot of pastors speaking up, sharing what they've written in to state senators, state representatives, speaking against this. They've finally entered the national conversation. This is a line in the sand. If a Christian pastor or a Christian leader of a Christian institution in the state of Colorado cannot speak up when this kind of stuff happens, I don't know what future you have. I don't know what you're doing. You claim to love your neighbor. You claim to care about the least of these. And this is what's going on in our state. And are you going to remain silent in the face of this? You claim to talk about one famous book in our state, The Art of Neighboring. The Art of Neighboring is a famous book that's impacted many, many pastors in Colorado, many Christian institutions in Colorado. Do you actually care about your neighbor? Do you care about your Christian neighbor's kids? Because now is the time to speak about this issue. You need to speak up. You need to get in the game. And I've been part of a small coalition of pastors that span denominations: Presbyterian, Baptist, Evangelical Free Church, CREC, non-denominational. I'm part of a cohort of pastors, and we are calling on the megachurch pastors in the state of Colorado to speak now. Speak now or lose it all. We have been calling specifically on Flatirons Church, Mission Hills Church, Cherry Hills Community Church, Red Rocks Church, New Life Church in Colorado Springs. These are mega church pastors that have massive influence over many, many Christians in our state, and they need to speak now or lose it all because they hold massive influence. They need to lay aside this nonsense that we've believed about we're not going to be political, neither left nor right, all of this kind of stuff, and we need to lay it aside, and we need to speak for the truth of God now to defend the vulnerable in our state. One of my pastor friends, Stephen Whitlow, just published an article at the Clear Truth Media, and he said this: he's been accused of being the most political church in town, which our church has also been accused of doing this as well. And he wrote this morning: "I, for one, will gladly own the moniker most political pastor if that means defending the unborn and preaching on biblical sexuality. sadly, from too many megachurch and megachurch adjacent pastors, whether they be connected to Andy Stanley style attractional movement, the Gospel Coalition, Acts 29, and many other organizations, are cowards. That's not to say all of them, but far too many. And according to Revelation 21, cowardice is a damnable sin. Now is the time to speak. Now is the time to speak. I fail to understand how a pastor could not get in his pulpit and speak clearly about what God's truth says on these matters and encourage the Christians under his care to get involved. And so this is the time to speak. Here's what we're seeing locally. I'm seeing a lot of good fruit by just reaching out to other pastors, sharing with them what we're working on, sharing with them. Pastor Chris Goebel down in Castle Rock, he's put together a website of resources, and I've actually seen great responses. Great responses. Maybe you don't want to be as political as I tend to be, as I like to be, because I think it's necessary and good and right for a Christian pastor to get involved in these matters. But I'm seeing them actually speak up. I'm seeing various megachurch pastors, some of whom I've already named, respond to emails and say, we're going to take this to our elder board and see what we can get done. And I think that's a great movement. And I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it, but we're seeing some good responses so far. So there's been a couple of things I've received. Some messages I've received, some feedback I've received has been very good. This includes secular people who are not Christians. Like I said, they've been very encouraging, thanking me for speaking up on the truth, thanking other pastors for speaking up on the truth. I've received encouragement from other pastors who have said, this is good. I'm glad you're speaking up. Thanks for encouraging me. And so I'm glad for that. But the vitriol I've received has been from squishy, quote unquote, Christians who are mad. They call me disgusting. They call me a shame in the face of Jesus Christ. They say they're ashamed of my representation of the witness of God in our state. And I have nothing to say to these people. These people are compromisers. I do not know where they stand with the Lord. I'm not the judge of their soul. That's the Lord's job. But I cannot believe that Christians would stand by while this happens. There's some who out there who say, yeah, Colorado's lost. It's always been blue. There's no fight to be had. There's no future there anyway. They hold the House. They hold the Senate. They're in charge. Jared Polis is governor. He's a Democrat. What are you going to do? This is the attitude of losers. This is the attitude of losers. If that's your attitude, fine. Stay out of the fight, I guess. If that's how you want to live your life. We are not going to live our life that way. We're not going to roll over, and we're not going to give into this stuff and act like there's no future. Okay? We're going to get in the fight, and we're going to get involved, and we're going to do the best we can, because this is the battle. This is where we're at, and this is what we need to do right now. Now, other Christians have asked a fair question. Many, not just Christians, but non-Christians have asked, what do we do if this passes? We fight. Well, we fight. As one president has said, we fight. We're going to fight this tooth and nail. Even if it were to pass through the Senate and were to be signed into law by Governor Polis, it will be held up in the courts. We will press it. We will press it all the way. This is the way forward, that we need to fight this tooth and nail, and we need Christians who are willing to be Jack Phillips. God bless that man for standing up many times in a place that felt alone for him, because many pastors would not speak up for Jack Phillips when he was persecuted and prosecuted by the crazy leftists in our state for not baking the cake, and he won those cases. And so what we're seeing now is that a lot of people are fed up, and they're saying, fine, sue me. Fine, take me before the Civil Rights Commission. We're seeing a lot of Christians who are saying they're willing to do that here. And I'm very encouraged by that. We have outside support from various organizations that are getting involved in the fight, that are trying to equip Christians. Unfortunately, many of the organizations that are based here have yet to say anything. We have Compassion International, Navigators, Young Life, Mothers of Preschoolers, which I think just rebranded to something else. I haven't seen anything from these major Christian organizations that are based in our state. Denver Seminary, I've released a couple of threads and posts on Facebook and other places about Denver Seminary, how it's compromised at this point. They're not going to say anything. They're happy to talk about gun violence, racism, climate change, all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to this, they're not going to say anything. Now, if they do, amazing. I am so happy for that. I am not the kind of guy who's, if all of a sudden these institutions and these Christians change their mind, I might jest at them, but I'm going to welcome them to the fight, because we need all the help we can get. So what's the way forward? We need Christians to be posting about this. We need Christians to be speaking up about this. I've seen many Christians who have done that for the first time. whether on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We need Christians making noise about this, because here's what's going on. I'm still receiving texts from Christians in Colorado who have no idea what's going on because they're not on social media. And that's their call. That's fine. But I just got a text yesterday from a friend who said, I had no idea they were trying to pass this thing. And I'm like, yeah, we've been working on this for the last 10 days. And so I'm not saying you have to be on social media, but what I'm trying to encourage you to do, if you are a Christian with Christian friends, you need to let them know this is happening, because here's what's not going to happen in a state like Colorado. 9 News, the biggest local news channel, and other news channels are not going to provide uh, good coverage on this topic. They're going to continue to provide cover for left-wing transgender ideology in our state. They've been doing this for years. They're not going to bring attention to normal conservatives and Christians in the state of Colorado to tell them why this is bad and why this is wicked and why the Democrats specifically are doing this and how to stop it. They're sympathetic to it. And so every major media organization in the state of Colorado is sympathetic to it. And so you're going to have to share this with your friends. I know that takes courage. I know that takes guts. I know it means starting conversations that you might not have ever had before with some people in your life, but you're going to have to share, whether text, phone call, email, or posting on social media. You also need to show up. Here's what's going on. So with House Bill 251312 specifically, what they're doing is they're moving it to different committees. So it was on one committee and now they're moving it to a different committee. They were supposed to hear it. I'm recording April 11th, 2 days ago. So April 9th, they were supposed to hear it in the Senate for a hearing, and they changed the date, and they still haven't released when they're going to hear it. And so they're playing a game, kind of like the move the shells game, move the cups game, where you're hiding something underneath it, because they're trying to get it through and they're trying to sneak it through. The danger in this is that so far we've seen a lot of good feedback. We've seen a lot of good engagement, both on social media, in churches, in organizations. We're seeing institutions finally get involved, which is great. But the temptation is, great, I signed a petition, I'm good now, I've done my duty. And you cannot let up the pressure. We cannot relent. They're trying to play games to get this stuff through. Now, here's the deal. There is a long shot that this gets to Polis's desk, and he has 3 options. He can either sign it, he can either just kind of let it go by and not sign it and it will still become law, or he can strike it down. If he were to sign this, and if he were to just allow it to go into law, those first 2 options, he can kiss his presidential bid goodbye, because the American people have rejected this nonsense. They have said, we don't want this in the military, in our schools, anywhere else. This is crazy. And so I know that Polis has his eye on a presidential bid. In fact, I think in the next, either today or in the next week, Michael Bennet, a senator in the state of Colorado, is announcing his run for governorship in the state of Colorado. I think that's some politicking, because Polis is probably going to try to get involved in the next election cycle. And if he signs this and lets it pass, it's not going to happen. What they're probably going to try to do, I would assume, is when it gets to the Senate, they're going to try to amend the bill. They're going to try to give some, okay, just like they did in the House where they removed private schools from it, they're probably going to offer, okay, well, sure, we will take out this clause, but they're going to keep all the rest. And they're going to try to make you think, oh, we hear you, which they don't. They don't want to hear from you. What we saw in the House is that these House representatives, some of whom nobody's ever heard of, because they run unopposed and they get funding from God knows where, they get up in the House and they are asked, hey, did you ask any stakeholders that don't agree with your position on transgenderism? Did you ask any of them what they think of this? And they said openly, they said, no, if we were in the civil rights era, we wouldn't ask the KKK what they thought of our bills. And so they compared people who oppose the transgender nonsense in our state to the KKK. This is the Democrat Party. And so they're going to try to sneak it through. They're going to try to amend it. You cannot let up on this stuff. This whole bill is trash, as are the other ones they're trying to get through. We cannot let up. We have to keep putting the pressure on. You need to be petitioning your senator. We have senators right now that are on the committee. You can go to Pastor Chris Gobel's website. You can see what committee this is going to be on, this specific bill, House Bill 251312, where they're threatening to kidnap kids away from their parents who do not affirm their gender, quote unquote. And so you can get in touch with a state senator there. We're reaching out to them. Me and my pastor friends are reaching out to the churches in those districts in order for those churches to speak up and reach out to their senator. And here's the deal. If you're a pastor or you're a Christian leader of a Christian organization in Colorado, it's time to speak now or forever hold your peace. We are keeping lists of what churches are willing to speak out and which ones aren't. And there will be consequences, we will say, if you will not speak out now. You had excuses prior. Maybe during COVID, you were really confused, whatever it may be. This is a line in the sand. This is an Alamo moment where we need to stand and lock arms and say, no, we're not going to permit this to happen here. So Christian pastors need to speak up. They need to speak out. They need to equip their people. If you've been tolerating in your midst, in your church, a lot of people who are okay with using pronouns and this transgender ideology, and they're just trying to have a winsome witness in the workplace, and they're just trying to hold their peace in hopes that one day they can share the gospel. Friend, that time is over. You need to equip your people boldly. You can equip them compassionately with the love of Jesus Christ, but you need to be very clear on where you stand on these matters. And at this point, if you're silent on these matters, it will be interpreted as complicity with these bills. It will be. You cannot keep burying your head in the sand while we face a totalitarian takeover of the government trying to take kids from their parents and giving them legal cover for that. You cannot look the other way while that is happening. A lot of y'all want to talk about Bonhoeffer and being courageous and speaking truth to power. Well, do it then. Do it. Now's the time to do it. You need to get involved. So if you're a pastor or Christian leader, you need to speak now. We're keeping track of who's willing to speak up, me and my pastor friends. And we're basically, our advisement now, if you're a Christian and you're a part of a church and in the state of Colorado, and you go to your elder board, you go to your pastor and you say, hey, we need to speak up on this. And that elder board shuts you down and says, we can't do that. It risk us, or we want to have a witness to the lost. And if we speak up on this, it's going to alienate the lost. You need to leave that church. Now's the time. It's like, you gave them an opportunity. Maybe they need some time to gather some more information. They need to strategize about it. Maybe they need a couple weeks, whatever it may be. But you need to draw a line in the sand in your church. If you run a Christian organization, you need to speak up. Like I said, Focus on the Family, Compassion International, MOPS, Mothers of Preschoolers, Navigators, Young Life, all of these are here. Focus on the Family has released one article, which is good. That's great. We need more. We need them to start organizing people. Here's what's been shocking. This is a crown in the gutter moment for Christians in Colorado. And what we've seen is that crown would have just laid there if no one had picked it up. Okay? None of these institutions want to touch this. They are trapped in some kind of boomer fantasy world where the Democrats aren't this way. They are. All of them. They want this stuff pushed through. They want to criminalize dead naming and misgendering. They want to do all of this stuff. And they're going full bore against humanity, against God, and against Christians in the state of Colorado. I've been encouraged by the Colorado Association of Homeschoolers or Home Educators. They've spoken up. That's great. There are others that are speaking up. So I'm not saying there's no one. I'm not saying we have no support. But I'm saying for those big institutions and for those big churches, Timberline Church in Fort Collins, New Life, Colorado Springs, now is the time. Okay? You need to get involved. You need to rally your people to get involved. Some of these Christian institutions, here's what I've noticed. They're scared of losing their funding if they get involved politically. They're scared of either getting sued. They know they can probably win, but they're scared of having to go through a legal battle if they speak up. And I have a question. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me right now? You cannot be serious. We have a totalitarian regime that is threatening to steal kids from parents, and you won't speak up because you're scared of money. Do not make me quote a Bible verse about worshiping God or money, because that seems to be what it's like. We have a legal battle that we're facing down, and we need you to get involved. And if you have power, you've been accruing power for all these years, and you have a privileged position where you're not actually necessarily on the front lines. You're kind of a parachurch organization where you're supporting other pastors who are on the front lines, doing the hard work of ministry, ministering to people struggling with these mental illnesses, all this kind of stuff. And you're more concerned with losing funding right now when this is what we're facing. Get real. You need to get in the fight. So this is what's going on. I wanted to provide this update. I hope it's short enough that you can kind of get some action steps. So what are we going to do? We are going to post, we're going to share, we're going to bring attention to this relentlessly everywhere you can. You need to show up. You need to, whenever they post this Senate bill hearing for this specific bill, you need to show up and you need to get involved. If you can't show up, like I wasn't able to with the House bill, when I went through the House at least, you need to write in. There's places you can write in. You need to contact your local representative. You need to reach out to other Christians in churches. You need to challenge your pastor, your Christian leader of your Christian organization to speak up now if they haven't already. Now, maybe they've spoken up in the past. Maybe they've made a statement on this, so they made it abundantly clear to Christians and organization. They can still get involved. They can either say something publicly, share a statement they've made. But I know so many Christians and so many Christian leaders who have bought into the lie of the third way mentality. The lie of the third way mentality, of course, is that we can strike this happy medium between Democrat and Republican, or conservative and liberal. And that day is over. The day of neutrality is over. They've declared an all-out war on God, on humanity, and on God's people. And so now is the time to stand up. And if you lack courage in this hour, I understand, I sympathize with that, but you need to find it quick. You need to find people you can lock arms with. You need to find a defensible position where you feel that you've got support. You need to get back into God's word and stand on the truth of God's word today, because they are not letting up on this. We are seeing national attention brought to this, which is great. We need more national attention brought to this. We need other states to speak out against this. We've seen everyone from Alex Jones to Ben Shapiro, all sorts of people talking about this. Ben Shapiro gave, that's why I titled this conversation All Eyes on Colorado. He gave a tweet thread I made a retweet, which was great to see. But we're seeing other pastors in other states join the fight. We are seeing an assembly of local pastors who cross denominational boundaries, some of whom are non-denominational. And I want to commend Brave Church pastor Jeff down in Denver. I think it's South Denver where they pastor. They also have a campus in Westminster, which is relatively close to us. They have publicly spoken up about this, and they're one of the biggest churches in the state. And so God bless that church. They're speaking up. They're standing strong, and they're equipping their people to think clearly on these matters. We need more. We need more. And if you've been squishy up until this point, you've bought the third way lie, you've voted, maybe you've entertained voting for Democrats, or you abstained because you just couldn't stand the language of Donald Trump, or you didn't want to offend your neighbor, get over it. Get over it. These bills are wicked. This is a line in the sand. You need to get involved, and you need to fight this stuff left and right. Here's where kind of my hope is ultimately in Jesus Christ, his lordship. As a Christian, we know that if we die, if we're persecuted, we do not die. We live in Jesus Christ. And so there's no reason to be afraid. I'm obviously animated and a bit hot about these matters and angry. That I view that as very permissible given the times we're in. But you do not need to be afraid. We have been saved by God, by Jesus Christ, through his Son, and we have put our faith in him that we will live eternally with the Father. And so we have no reason to be afraid. We have only reasons to be courageous, and we can stand upon the word of God. And so if you're looking for courage, you can find it in Jesus Christ. And speaking practically, what we're seeing is that the bills that were passed, I believe in Washington, Oregon, California, Minnesota, where they passed this kind of legislation, that was under a different regime. So you had the Biden regime that was in power nationally, and they were able to get away with this stuff because it was kind of the soup du jour. It was like, well, I guess this is where things are going. Trump is now in charge. We have now the Republicans in charge nationally, and we are seeing people, they've seen what's happened in California, and for too long, people who have moved from California and these other places looking for cheaper housing or better accommodation in Colorado, they brought their politics with them, and many Coloradans are saying, it's over. It's over. You've had your fun. You've had your pride festivals, all this kind of stuff. It's over. You're done, and we're not going to put up with it anymore. And so I'm releasing this as kind of a live episode to encourage other pastors, other Christians. I hope it's encouraging to you. I would encourage you to share this when it comes out. I'm going to try to release this today on YouTube and podcast. Share this with other Christians and pastors, because this is truly coming from my heart. I'm encouraging other people to get in the fight. We need more pressure put on the government. All of these bills they're trying to pass, Senate Bill 183, taxpayer-funded abortions. This is wickedness. House Bill 1309, codifying gender-affirming care and health plans. Senate Bill 129, out-of-state telehealth abortion pills. House Bill 1312, misgendering is child abuse and discrimination. All of these are bad. They need to be pushed against relentlessly. I know the gun bill has already passed. It makes me sad that more pastors aren't willing to speak up on the Second Amendment. I wish they would. It's a very clear thing from the Bible that we have that permission from God to defend ourselves, but unfortunately many have been inundated with liberal lies and twisting the scriptures to suit a political agenda. And so they'll twist the Sermon on the Mount to say Christians must be pacifist. This is nonsense. And so I want more Christians to get involved. So I hope this was a helpful conversation. It really wasn't a conversation. It was me lecturing you, sharing my heart with you, talking, giving you the latest updates. And I want this to be shareable with friends. So I'm gonna cut it here in order for this to be shared with your friends. And if you have a friend that shared this with you, I want to encourage you to get involved. You can reach out to me via my email. You can go to my website. You can follow me on Twitter. You can go to Pastor Chris Gobel's website. He turned his entire website, that was his personal website, into a kind of one-stop shop for the latest updates on a daily basis. That's pastorchrisgobel.godaddysite.com. I know that address seems lame, but we had to put this together almost overnight, which just shows you how lackadaisical these big Christian organizations in the state of Colorado have become. We have a pastor who had to turn his site, his personal site, into the fight against HB 251312, which is fine. We're going to do it. We're happy to join in the fight. But it just shows you how this was a crown in the gutter moment. We're ready to step in. We're ready to stand firm. And we welcome any and all who are ready to lock arms with us against this wickedness in our state. So I hope you'll get involved, even if you're out of state. Bring attention to this. And for those that are listening out of state, I'm warning you, and this is what I've been trying to warn you, that if you don't fight this now, where you are, if you don't put in place laws and principles and legislation in your municipality, in your town, in your county, and in your state, this is coming your way. They're not letting up. This is the party of the Democrats, and it's baffling that any Christian could say that is an acceptable choice. I'm gonna mark that as an acceptable choice in this day and age. So hope this episode was helpful. Share it with a friend, give it a like on YouTube, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.